I think the real outcome of a good trusting relationship is when you can start to see behaviors from our users and customers where they no longer treat the merchant or the vendor as a vendor, but more as a partner. And if you think about that, that largely comes down to a good relationship, and good relationships, they are largely underpinned by two pillars, in my opinion: good trust, high communication, and of course, on a foundation of high work ethic and a lot of empathy. So the things that come out of good trust and good communication is that relationship, and really wonderful things start to happen in your relationship with the customer and the user, where they start to do things and partner with you on the development of the product, on the feedback, but also in a proper, amazing scenario, they become advocates for you. They talk about you to other folks as well. So kind of, I think that is it's a nirvana stage to be at. I've been in organizations where we've done that reasonably well, and others where we've gone diabolically wrong. And usually when it's gone completely wrong, is because it is so commonsensical, the things I'm about to say, that I think in the places where it's gone wrong, it's been ignored because they assume it's already there, or it's really hard to put into a product, into a software form factor. So the kind of 3 or 4 steps or 3 or 4 pillars that I like to touch on very quickly. The first one is really take the time to understand what your users care about. I'm not talking about customers here, not the person writing the check, the person using the kit you're trying to get across. Take the time to understand it. And practically the best way to do this is in this data obsessed world that we're currently in, because it's so easy to get data all the time. A lot of the time there's an absence of insight. So use the charts, use your various tools that show user behavior in a certain way to inform what you speak to your users about. And when I say speak, I don't mean behind a user form. I mean speak to them. Whether you call it discovery, user research, whatever it is, you can't do that a lot. You probably can do that to 10, 15, 20 people, maybe 100 if you're a large organization. But use the data to understand what you speak about. And when you speak about those things, then use data through a survey and other things to validate at scale. Now send it to 1 million people or 1,000 people to see if that's right. And once you understand what their world is like, so that is how they may use your application, if they're already an existing user, or something else that they're using, then you've got to tell them, well, thanks for your time, and you're helping me understand this. What on earth are you going to do with it? Explain to them your intentions. This is not the solution or how the might look like, but sort of try and express to them your desire to solve these problems or not solve these problems, because that's not your wheelhouse. Because then it's again building trust, because you're communicating to them that I spent time with you. These are the things I'm going to try and help with. These are the things I'm not going to try and help with. Again, it's building trust and transparency. And the things that you do say you want to tackle and solve, you may not be able to actually do them. Things change all the time. Roadmaps change all the time. Funding changes all the time. But that's okay. That's where communication comes in. Be transparent. Of course, you can't, perhaps in some cases, you can't breach confidentiality and say why you can't do certain things. But if you've given the sign to a user or a customer that you are about to try and solve a particular problem they've expressed to you, and you no longer can do that, you need to take the time to tell them that. They may not be happy with you, but I guarantee they'll be a lot happier if you told them ahead of time rather than on release day when they were expecting it and did not get it. The third thing is, when communicating, speak human. As in really speak. I've got a test which I call sell it to my sister. My sister's brilliant. She's great. So I just use it as a analogy of someone who doesn't know my world. And how would I explain it to her? Use the simplest language possible to explain everything you are doing, how you want to engage with them, what the release is. Don't go down to, and that may mean if you're speaking to a technologist, a CTO, someone who's very technically proficient, that you do speak in technical terms, and you do speak about TPS and lag times and all those things. But that also means if you're speaking to someone who's not proficient in that way, you don't speak in that way. So be very, very clear. The reason I'm saying this is, one, it's always easy to trust simple words because you don't feel the person's hiding behind any language. The words can only mean one thing. Second, it's very easy to have a conversation, and it shows proper cognitive empathy. So you are genuinely trying to share something with your customer and user and want them to return the favor and speak to you about what this means to them. And I think finally, before I just kind of summarize these few minutes, is it's not a four-step journey, full stop. It's a circle. Keep doing this with them over and over and over again. And the best sort of parallel I can try and help everyone with is as the best relationship you have with anyone. Now, that may be a partner, a child, a dog, a pet. It doesn't matter. There is one good relationship, at least, that I hope most of us have. How are you keeping that going? What's happening? What's happening? What are you doing? It's a work. It's a daily, effort to do this, but you're practicing something every day. Um, Finally, when you see all this come together, you'll realize that what you're actually practicing is your duty of care. You are providing software that someone may or may not be paying for. They're certainly paying with their time to do something. You have a duty of care to what you're delivering to them. And if you do that well, the result you get is trust. Just 30 seconds before I wrap on this, Adam. When you do this well, you will mostly see, for the purpose of local trust, I've seen sort of these four examples of things happening when you're doing them well. So if you want to measure whether you're doing them well or not, your service or your product needs to be in a local language where you want to target. Now, by that, it may mean it's on a scale of the UI and the UX being in local, but also it should go down to the documentation, the guides, the emails, the marketing materials. Truly want to gain the trust of a particular demographic that speaks a particular language or local culture, it has to be end to end. Second is adapt the user experience to show that you care about the region they're in or the culture they're in, or explain to them why you're not doing that or not doing that yet. Very classic, obvious example. If you might be in the Middle East, things go from right to left. Very difficult to do in the product for a variety of reasons. But if you can't do it or you're not doing it yet, explain to them why you're not, because that also shows that you care. It doesn't show that you're being ignorant and ignoring them. Lastly, of course, is around being compliant with regulations. So local sort of just way things get done, even if they're not regulations in this part of the world, things are done in this particular way. They expect customer support over email and not over a video call. Explain why you're doing that or why you're not doing that. I'll pause there. It's a very deep topic, but ultimately find ways to build a trusting relationship built on duty of care and communication.